Sup everyone, Proto here, and I thought that since the beta is over and the game's coming out in a little bit over a month, that I would give you guys a look at how the legendary weapons would work in terms of upgrades. So I'll have a later video talking about the other weapons. So right now this is going to be primaries, there's going to be one about secondary weapons, heavy weapons, and there's going to be another one about armor. Later on I'll also try doing one that has to focus more on exotic weapons and why they're a step above the legendary weapons. So I want to start this video off by talking about the hand cannon. So first off, I want to give you guys a heads up. How this format's going to work is that the first column is going to be telling you what kind of damage it does. And just ahead of time, I'll tell you that there's 4 types of damage so far. There's normal, kinetic damage. There's arc damage, which is lightning. There's solar damage, which is fire. And there's void damage, which is the purple little swirl you saw. Right beside that column is going to be talking about the types of zooms you have. So this is just to give us an idea of that when you're at Legendaries, you get 3 types of zooms that you can choose from. How it works with shotguns and secondary weapons I'll talk about in the secondary video. But right now, generally, pistols are going to get different iron sights. And sometimes they'll be getting actually a holographic sight or ACOG scope. You'll see how it works. And when we go to the assault rifles, the auto rifle, sorry, pulse rifles and scout rifle, you'll see those they get different types of zooms, how far they can go. Just to give you a heads up, when you see the scout rifle, you'll see that it actually goes further than the other weapons. For good reason, because it is a semi-auto. Semi-autos tend to have more range than than auto rifles and pulse and burst rifles. So the first row for all scopes is generally going to be the default, so I'm just going to skip over that. So going on to the second one, we have Sure Shot IS, which is snap sight, excellent handling, superb target acquisition. So it's not as stable, but it has better handling and aims down sight quicker. Quick Draw has agile sights, lightning fast handling. Again, you see a decreased stability, but your handling increases. Okay, I want to quickly talk about handling because it's going to be something common that comes up, but it's never really explained all that well. So my assumption is, because we don't really have I don't have any hard evidence for this, is that handling talks more about how it will, excuse me, how it will be when you're aiming down sights. So the sway, because stability is talking about recoil. So you know the only thing that would be left for handling to be talking about would be the sway. So I'm guessing that this handling would be something that people would look for more in snipers and single shot weapons like that. Alright, moving on to the next section. The next section is more of your power up ability. So in this case it's reactive reloading. So reloading this weapon grants a damage boost for a short time. There's no other alternative to that, so you get to pick that as freely as you want. So what I want to quickly talk about your second slots. By the way, this will go so much faster than the later weapons, but since this is the first weapon, I want to give you guys a thorough explanation. So unlike columns 2 and 5, where you have multiple choices and you have to pick one, this column you don't actually have any different options. So you have reactive reloading and that's it. Or if it's a different weapon, or you can be the same weapon, it can have a different power ability. So the reason this matters, I'll explain later when we get to the final column. And I want to say this as a heads up that the first column, the fourth column, and the last column will have something in common, and that thing in common is that they are constant. For every single weapon, doesn't matter which type of weapon you're talking about. The position may move, but that lock symbol and the first column will always be the same. So you'll have your type of damage set in stone, and the lock symbols is an increase in your actual weapon's damage. However, it comes at a price, and since we're coming to the first upgrade, I'm going to talk about that price. The price is not only do you have to pay glimmer like you do for everything else, you have to pay a certain type of material. And that material you'll see right beside your rate of fire, impact, range, stability, reload, magazine size. To the right of that, when you hover over that, it'll tell you what material it is and where the material can be found. For example, the material here, Spirit Bloom, you have to find in Venus. So you'd have to go to that planet and then look on the ground, I think. We'll get more information about it when we actually come to the release of the game. On top of that, you have to spend weapon parts, but weapon parts is gotten from, you know, dismantling your weapons. Armor pieces you'll see that you get from dismantling armor. I don't think it happens every time, but it's not a hard thing to acquire. Moving on, we get to another fork in the road where you have to choose between different types of rounds in this case. So the first one is explosive rounds, self-explanatory. Armor piercing rounds, I'm guessing will do health damage alongside doing armor damage like it would work in other games. And it also slows down weapon handling. So again, I believe handling is the weapon sway, but I can't really be positive about that. So we'll see more about that again when the game actually comes out and we get to test this stuff. Because if you look here, you get to see what each of them do, but none actually talk about handling itself. It'll tell you what each does. Impact's talking about damage, stability is talking about decreasing the recoil when you fire continuously, and so on and so forth. So that's armor piercing rounds. Moving on, we have the last type of rounds, which is skip rounds, where not only do you get ricocheting off hard surfaces, but you get to carry more ammo in reserve. So I don't really see how this is so important for primary weapons, since you never run out of primary weapons, whether it be in, well, I've never ran out of it, whether it be in Crucible or in the story mode. So also it gives you less weapon handling. So again, it's more sway, I believe. Don't hold me to that. Anyway, now moving on to our last power-up ability, we get Outlaw, which precision kills with this weapon dramatically increase reload speed. So every kill you get that's a headshot kill, you get increased reload speed. This is kind of a lackluster ability, but then again, when you're in a big fight, it might be a bigger deal, especially with the low mag reload speed on the high fixer. And last one, Lock In, increased attack, but locks in all previous choices. So this is why I was saying that the only columns that matter for the last row, it would be the second and the fifth, where they have multiple choices. Normally you'd be able to switch in between, you know, depending on the situation, but once you get that last boost in damage, you're set in. You cannot switch around your scopes, your rounds, or whatever abilities in those columns. Next, we'll go on to the pulse rifle. So the first column, again, you just have your types of scopes, so you can choose between that as you will. Fully auto upgrade makes it go from burst fire to automatic fire, pretty self-explanatory. Your lock symbol, again, just increased weapon attack damage. And then moving on to the next group, we have your types of rounds. Our first type of rounds is colony rounds, so they allow you to carry more in reserve on top of doing more damage. Armor piercing rounds, we went over this earlier, so you know I'm not going to focus on it too much. Next we have the high caliber rounds, which were oversized that'll leave your opponent reeling. I don't really know exactly what that means, but I'm assuming what's going to happen is that they're going to have some sort of stagger, or they're going to get like this huge recoil when they hit you. Not recoil, but they'll flinch really heavy when they hit you, or when you hit them, my apologies. And increased weapon handling, so again, more sway. Now moving on to the next part, we have your next power up, which is Zen Moment. So causing damage with this weapon increases its stability. So the more you hit an enemy rather than the more you shoot, the stronger your weapon is going to be getting. And then again, you get to lock in your choices for a buff and damage. Moving on to our third weapon, we have the auto rifle. So again, the auto rifle, you get your three types of sights. They're going to be different within with a bit of range, buff, and all that. Your power up would be glass half full, which is when your magazine is half its size. So in this case, 12 rounds, you get a buff and damage. I don't know how much damage, but it's a buff and damage. You get your upgrade, and then you get your magazine sizes here. So the first one is that you get slightly more ammo at absolutely no penalty. The next one we're moving on to will be a really huge magazine, but you get slower handling and more reload speed. So here's where my conflictions with handling come into play, because slower handling, I'm thinking that means that maybe the sway goes slower than normal. Yeah, so that's where I have my conflictions. So going on to the last type of rounds, improved recoil control for reduced capacity. So unlike the other two where you get more ammo, for this case you get less ammo. So it's really up to you. But it's better. It has better recoil control. Last one, unflinching. It's easier to aim under fire using this weapon. So this is in a lot of FPS games where when you're getting hit, it's okay because you know you get a certain buff that'll make it harder for you to actually get off target. Moving on to the last, but my favorite weapon, the scout rifle. You get 3 types of sights like you do for every other weapon, and then you get the power up ability. So the power up ability in this scenario is Grenadier. Grenadier is perfectly paired up with Discipline because what happens is it reduces the cooldown on your grenade, and that's what Discipline actually does. So you want to get a lot of armor if you're going to have a weapon that has this ability. And then you get the upgrade ability, increased weapon damage, and now we're moving on to the different types of magazines again. So our first magazine talks about quick release for fast reloads, self-explanatory. Next one's faster handling. Again, this is where I'm kind of sketchy because faster sway, I don't know how that'd be helpful. And the last one's improved recoil control at a reduced capacity, which for single shot weapons, that'd be, I don't know why you wouldn't take that over the other two. It's not a big deal about the whole reload speed. I mean the capacity, sorry. Reload speed also is not that big of a deal, especially if you have gloves for that. So kills of this weapon grant bonus ammo direct to the magazine, and also if you have return to sender, then if you get direct to the magazine, reload speed is even less of an issue. Last but not least, we get to lock in all our decisions again. Anyway, that's it for primary weapons. I didn't want to get into too much or this video would be like twice as long. So with that said, I want to end it off with saying that these are, they're not weapon specific, that you have to customize your magazines with your scout rifles and auto rifles and your rounds with pulse rifles and hand cannons. It's just, it depends on the luck of the draw. So that's why people are going to want to farm for the weapons, especially since Bungie didn't allow us to be trading weapons. So what you want to do is, I'm just giving you guys a heads up of what kind of upgrades you can be expecting, so you know how you want to build your weapon instead of, you know, looking online. Actually, we're looking online right now. Well, you get what I mean. So I hope this helped you guys out in any way. It was informative. Stay tuned if you guys want to see the upgrades for this, possible upgrades for the secondary weapons and possible upgrades for the heavy weapons. And once those are up, there will be annotations in the top left and the top right for each of the two. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next episodes. So later.